Welcome back, my friends, to AA Recovery Interviews. I'm your host, Howard L., and I'm an alcoholic. Sober since January 1st, 1988, one day at a time. I'm grateful you've joined us. AA Recovery Interviews is the podcast where Alcoholics Anonymous members from around the world share their timeless and extraordinary stories of experience, strength, and hope. There are more than 175 awesome interviews in this podcast series. I invite you to scroll through my past episodes on any podcast app to listen to them all. Today's show features my interview with Sabine H., who joined me from Copenhagen, Denmark. Growing up in a culture in which alcohol is both ubiquitous and deeply ingrained in social life, Sabine never considered it as the cause of her problems until well into her 40s. By then, the ruinous effects of her drinking had supplanted Sabine's diminishing ability to mask her growing alcohol abuse and other mental health issues. The fame, money, and lofty position she had attained as a highly functional alcoholic conflicted with the self-loathing and disdain she felt deep inside. As the disease progressed, Sabine's life began to unravel. Despite her need for help, she nevertheless became an expert at hiding her problems. Naturally, she found little help or support from those with whom she worked. By the time she took a 3-month sick leave to both drink and work out her problems, she came up miserably empty. With utter despair eroding her desire to live, Sabine finally found the hand of AA reaching out to her. She entered the program a little more than 2 years ago, clawing her way past preconceived notions and self-doubts toward the middle of the herd. Since then, Sabine has embraced AA wholeheartedly, doing the work she was instructed to do. She even demonstrated the progress she had achieved by recently leaving her stress-ridden, booze-soaked corporate career to work as a counselor at a rehab facility. I feel you will be inspired and encouraged by what Sabine has to share, especially if you're relatively young in sobriety. Hers is a story that bears out the international appeal of Alcoholics Anonymous to those who reach out for help. So no matter where you are around the world, please enjoy the next hour or so with my friend and AA sister, Sabine H.
Hi, my name is Sabine, and I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Sabine.
Hi, Howard.
That's what people around the world will say.
Yeah.
There are very few AA meetings where they don't say hi, though I've been in a few where it's just tradition not to. But I think it's such a welcoming thing for people to do in a room, to say hi to everybody, newcomer and old-timer alike. Now, you pronounce your name Sabine or Sabine?
Sabine.
Sabine.
In Denmark, yeah.
Okay, so the E in your name actually has a sound to it.
Yeah, in Denmark it has, but after I started going to Zoom meetings and I heard others calling on me, it was like Sabine. And I was like, oh, I guess that's how it is like in other countries then.
Well, I'd be happy to call you Sabine if that's your name. I don't have any problem with that. There's a river, actually, I don't know if you know this, but there's a river in Texas called the Sabine River.
No, but I already love it.
Right, and it's a river that has a rich history.
Wow.
When I saw the name Sabine, I said, I know how to pronounce that, but you say you're in Copenhagen.
Yeah, Copenhagen, yeah.
Copenhagen. Okay, now let me get that pronunciation correct now. I want to make sure that this is really clean. Copenhagen. That's how I pronounce it if I want to pronounce it correctly, not Copenhagen.
No, that would be like more a German, I think, accent.
Okay, well, I won't adopt any other accents while we're doing this. I really love the fact that you're in, I guess it's Northern Europe.
Yeah.
And I've interviewed people from Great Britain and France and other places, Croatia and other places around Europe. And it's always so nice to be able to listen to AA stories from other parts of the world. And I appreciate you doing this today. Actually, you were the one who reached out to me in an email about 1.5 years ago or so.
Yeah.
Saying that you had listened to some of the podcasts and you expressed an interest if I ever needed you to be on the show, that you would be. And I have a standard that people have to have at least 2 years of sobriety. So you kept me well informed of when your 2 years was coming up.
Yeah.
Right around the date of your second birthday in AA, I asked you if you wanted to actually relate your story through this interview, and you said yes. So sometimes you get what you want.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's so amazing because a big part of it, apart from AA and the program steps and all that, has for me been listening to podcasts. And maybe it's a generation thing, I don't know, but when I got a depression a few years ago and went down with stress at work, I also listened to podcasts, being curious to be like, okay, I want to know everything about this.
Uh-huh.
And in the beginning of my journey to sobriety, I was like searching for podcasts and obviously anonymous. But I did find a few podcasts and one of them were yours. So I've been listening to kind of all episodes.
I'm glad you are, and I've been fortunate to have produced 175 of them already in the last 4.5 years. So we know how you got to me. What is your sobriety date?
It's 23rd of April, 23. So it's 23/4/23. So like it's 2 years and 2 months on this Monday.
Good for you, and congratulations on that.
Thank you.
People usually don't get to AA just because they want to have a different experience for an hour. They usually have a reason or two why they're actually at the meeting or on the Zoom call. Tell me a little bit about how you came to find AA.
It's really, I've learned, some has said, is it an odd thing or a God thing? And I'm coming to believe more and more it's a God thing, because I'm 50 now, so I was like 48, and I didn't know I was an alcoholic. I had been feeling very like irritable, restless, all these things for like my whole life, but also had like a high functioning, successful life. So when I went to AA, I would say like the spiritual melody had caught to me. I was so empty and I'd been like sad and didn't have any hope for anything for like maybe 10 years. So I've been searching. I was creative director. I had a team of 14 people. I had a big salary, a big apartment, all these things. And the more I gained of the like outer success, the more my inner success was like dying.
Mm-hmm.
And I just so wanted to be happy, feeling happy, and I didn't understand. I couldn't. So it was kind of a coincidence. And I was like, it was like the last call. I was like, okay, I'll try it. Maybe they have something. So I was having a conversation actually with my daughter, who's been doing some drugs and have anorexia. Yeah, and she's been going to NA, and I didn't even know what that was. So we had a conversation, and she talked about meetings and stuff, and all of a sudden it just hit me. It was like, oh my God, that is what I have to do. I need to go to AA. It was like, why have I never ever thought of it? So I went 2 days after.
What did you know about AA? What had you heard, or if someone mentioned the name Alcoholics Anonymous to you before you actually came to the program and said, Sabine, what do you know about AA? What would you have said?
No, nothing. I knew nothing. I'd seen like a few movies and thought it was like old men smelling like pee, sitting, drinking anonymously and, whining. And then when I came, I was like crying and I was like, my life is over. And I was so shameful. And I was like, oh my God, if I meet anyone I know, obviously they would be there for the same reason. But I was so fearful and had so much pride and a lot of defects like I can see today.
One of the things that happens when you come in and all the myths are kind of dispelled, then you think, now what? Now what do I have to do? And stepping through the door is probably the hardest step of all the steps we talk about in the program of AA. But walking through the door, stepping over that threshold into a room of total strangers who love you because you all share the same affliction is really just extraordinary, I think. And what's cool about doing this interview with you is because the story of how it used to be and what happened is only a couple years old. When I'm interviewing people with 20, 30, 40 years of sobriety, they're reaching back into ancient history to talk about what it was like. But everybody's got a story that speaks to where they were when they first took a drink or what their family was like. Tell me about your family. What was it like growing up in your family?
I am the oldest of four girls, and a lot of what I'm like talking about now is like retrospect. It's things I see now or understand after I did the steps and like started to work with the program. And I can see now that this feeling of emptiness and not belonging has been in me since I was a little kid. And actually, I kind of been escaping my whole life. If everything that could take me away from me, I would do. And I see now, even before alcohol and drugs and sex and whatever, gambling, I've been like visiting everything that could remove me from me. I would, as a kid, I would go to the library and just loan all kind of cartoons and books, adventure books. And if I could just be in my room and read all day and disappear into these worlds of the kid books, I would do that. So I was like reading a lot and just wishing I was like in the stories, wishing I was in the movies I saw, wishing I had other parents, often wondering if I was adopted or, you know, I didn't understand what I was doing in that family. Even though I knew, I mean, I looked like them, so I
Sure.
had to not be adopted. So already there, I had this feeling of not belonging and trying to escape my whole life.
How much older were you than your siblings?
We came kind of rapidly. I'm from 74, so I have one from 77, one from 76, and one from 80.
Okay. So you're
So
all
it kinda,
relatively close in age, which means
yeah.
that you may have all experienced the same sort of things around the same time. Whereas I interview people from time to time who have siblings who are 8, 10, 12 years older that they didn't even know growing up. Of course, we're talking about, was it Finland that you grew up in? It wasn't
Denmark.
It was Denmark, okay.
But also Sweden. I've been living in Sweden as well.
Okay, so when you were a kid, is there any history of alcoholism in your family, your extended family, and what did that look like when you were a kid?
Actually, my father used to be quite an alcoholic. He was sailing from a very young age, like 14. He was stationed in America at a time in San Francisco. And during the Vietnam War, he was called in to be the one going out to help the wounded.
Oh, wow.
So, and he was kind of traumatic. I think today I could see some PTSD. Both my parents are dead, so I can't ask them. But I do know that he had some kind of a trauma, but he drank a lot. And my mom, before she met my dad, actually was a drug addict. But I haven't grown up with them using like that. They had, you know, like parties in the weekend and stuff. But I see today, my mom, she was a pill addict. I didn't know that until now, actually, in this late age, talking to my sisters. But she was, and she also, I can see today, have had some diagnosis, which didn't have letters at that time. But she was like depressed, and she had maybe some borderline or something, because it's never been safe. And my dad has been waking me up in the night, telling me to like watching the little sisters while he was driving her around to find doctors who would give her prescriptions. So I can see now that she's been an addict, but untreated and maybe not even knowing it.
So he participated in her addiction, and then what did she think of his drinking? You mentioned he probably was an alcoholic, but
He was.
how did she treat him?
I think he was like codependent on her, but he didn't drink in our upgrowing. Like he was working and providing. She was not working. But when they had parties and stuff, he was drinking. But when they got divorced, like I think I was 15, they both crashed and their addictions went in.
Did they ever seek any help?
No.
That must have been really tough for you as a child to see all that going on and nothing being done about it.
Yeah, but I didn't understand it. And I think I maybe like attached from it. escape from it. That's why I moved from home very early. I was like 15.
Yeah, your story of going to the library and getting all the books and all the things, that's a very common refrain for alcoholics growing up in that sort of atmosphere. They want to escape any way they can. And when you're just a child, you find ways, and sometimes that fantasy world is the way to do it. Others find alcohol relatively early. How old were you when you took your first drink?
I was 13, 14, like most. And I also remember actually, we bike a lot in these countries.
Uh-huh.
And you can have these fixing things when you tie brakes, you can like glue them together. And my dad fixed all of our girls' ties, but I discovered I could sniff the glue. So we never had any glue. We only have like the patches. And it was like giving a buzz for like, oh my God, I must have lost so many brain cells. I didn't do it for long, but I discovered it with a friend, and we tried it, and we went to the woods and we're like doing this, the glue thing. And it was like 10, 15 seconds of buzz getting like out of this world. And it was like, whoa. And then obviously alcohol was like a common thing. And I can see today, already at that time, it was like, I could drink more than my friends, and I drank faster, and I got drunker, always. But I thought it was normal. I mean, I can't remember yesterday. Oh, you can't remember. Me neither. So it was just like, you just needed to get as wasted as possible. It was just the thing, I guess, in the late 80s.
Yeah, yeah, I remember that. I remember those times. I'm not that familiar with Denmark. What is the social norm around alcohol in that country? Is it very permissive? Do people start at an earlier age? Is it more restricted? What does it look like in Denmark?
It is, without me putting my hand on the stuff, I think it's probably one of the worst and hardest countries to stop drinking. It is, everyone drinks, and it's so connected to having a good time. So either you're like in the summer house, or everyone drinks always, football games. I mean, it's always alcohol. You can't almost enjoy yourself without alcohol. It's so normalized. So it's weird when I didn't go to AA and I didn't know I was an alcoholic, if I had one evening like, no, I'm not drinking today, people were like, oh, are you pregnant? Is it because you're driving? It's like, no, I just don't feel like it. Why? Is something wrong? And it's quite difficult, actually. You're really not normal if you're not drinking.
Yeah. I've done some interviews with people who grew up in places like that, where it was so ubiquitous and so acceptable in society in general to drink that nobody took very much interest in a 12 or 14-year-old who was already drinking. You mentioned that you were 13 or 14 when you started. Did you do it with friends? Did you do it alone? What were the settings under which you were doing most of your drinking?
Always social, and obviously at that time it was mostly like every second, third weekend or something, when there was a party. But it was like looking forward to it, and I remember the feeling. Today I see, even as a grown-up, I never really liked the taste, not even of wine, which I thought I loved an ice-cold glass of white wine. I didn't. I just needed the effect, because after like two glasses, I was like, now I belong. Now I can be here. And I remember also the last year of drinking, I wish so often that I wouldn't get drunk, and I just could like have the effect. Obviously, the phenomena of craving kicked in and stuff like that, I didn't even know. I can see today. So I could never drink one glass, and I never understood that concept either. I would rather drink tea. I didn't understand why one glass. Now we're rolling.
When you were a teenager, let's say, and you were drinking, what were you going for with the drinking? Were you going for a euphoric feeling? Were you going for feelings that would gloss over some of the problems in your life, or did you just do it for a lot of different reasons?
I don't think I was aware that Probably I did it for the problems, but I think I did it because I got more courage and I had fun and everyone else did it. And the effect, just having fun, I think. But now that I think about it, I probably did it to like take away all the problems.
When you first drank and were drinking with your friends every couple of weeks, how long did it take for that to escalate into regular, if not everyday drinking, let's say frequent drinking? How long did it take?
Many, many years. I drank not normally, I think, because like in high school and up till I was 20, I was also, going to school. I didn't drink daily and only when we went out, but I always was like the drunkest. And already at that time, sometimes some people were like, oh, you got too drunk yesterday. And I was always so ashamed. So all my life, I've really been like having a super awareness, self-obsessiveness around it, even though I couldn't really control it.
Were you a blackout drinker?
Yeah, I can see that now. I didn't know what that was until I got to AA. I thought blackout drinker was like getting to the hospital and being like, and when I listened to you guys talk about it, I was like, oh, I had conversations with people I don't remember, but being like clear. And all of a sudden I was like, I've always been a blackout drinker. Obviously, I also remember stuff, but I had so many blackouts, and I thought that was like kind of the deal.
Yeah. If your approach was to moderate it or control it, the minute you become a blackout drinker, you don't know whether or not you've moderated or controlled it.
No.
The fact that you can't remember is probably a good indication that you couldn't control it. So you were a drinker on occasion, let's say, in high school. And how about university?
No, because when I was 20, from 16 to 20, I went to the high school. And, low self-esteem and very ambitious. I wanted to be like a Russian, what do you call it, translator on a ship. I saw myself like this demi-more in a white office thing. So I had Russian in high school, and my teacher came in the last year and said, Sabine, next year when you want to apply for the military, the officer line, it's Polish. So I was like, oh, I don't want to wait like 2 years. So I didn't want to have that education. My mom said, you should study nurse. And I was like, but I don't like blood and stuff like that. But I did. And I had like half a year, but I didn't show up to school because at the same time, I was working in a bar and as a model. And I thought that was more fun. And when I was 19, 20, I met the father to my kid. He was like, a doorman. He was in the discotheque, in the door bouncer.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was the bartender, and we hooked up, and we had 10 years together.
And how many children?
One.
One child. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I started in advertising at 20. And my ex-husband, actually, I felt he was the first person who really saw me, because he was like, oh, you shouldn't be a nurse. You should be something creative with that mind you have. And I was like, yeah, I want to do that. And he was like, I have a friend, he has an advertising agency. He can present you for like the different roles. And I went with him, and he was like, this is the art director, this is the copywriter, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, who's making the ideas and the concepts? Oh, that's usually the art director and copywriter. And I was like, I want to be like that. So I started like a super junior with no salary, just working for seniors. So I started like that, and I was in that business for 28 years.
So you rapidly you were married, you had a child, and you were working in the bar. Your husband at the time, once you got married, was a bouncer. Was he a drinker as well?
Yeah, but only like weekends and parties. So we stopped at that place we met each other, and he bought a bar, and it became like a really hip inner circle bar in Copenhagen. And at the same time, I started in the advertising business. So we had this like high fly life. We thought we were the couple everyone wanted to be. I think we were schmucks. I don't think it's charming, but we were very satisfied with ourselves and our lives.
Yeah.
Mirroring each other in this, delusion, I think.
Did he enable your drinking?
Yeah, we did both. And we also did Coke. I discovered Coke in these years only when we went out, like party festivals, New Year's Eve. And I discovered that, I can drink more and I don't go to sleep so early. So for me, I can see today the cocaine was just to enable even more drinking. It's my alcoholic who wanted cocaine because I've never been an addict to drugs without the alcohol.
Did you keep up that cocaine use until you came into the program, or had you stopped previously?
I stopped actually like 15 years before I came to the program because the cocaine, I did it a lot when I got divorced. I had 10 years of partying heavy. But the days after I got so blue, so depressive. So I remember one summer with a girlfriend of mine, I was like, I can't do it anymore. I can't, the parties are the same, the people are the same, the locations are different. And I just felt it was the same shit. I was like going to fashion parties and advertising parties and same shit. And I was so depressed and sad a lot of days after. So I stopped it from one day to the other, but I didn't stop drinking. I probably started to drink more. And I remember for a few years how hard it was to control it because I was used to be able to drink more with the cocaine. So now I got even faster drunk.
So this is after you're already divorced.
Yeah, so I was 30 when I got divorced.
Uh-huh. And so after you got divorced, you kept up the cocaine for a period of time.
Yeah, for 8 years or something, yeah. After the divorce, I still use cocaine when partying, but obviously not in the daily time because I started to get a quite high positions. So I I wasn't like that wasted, but I drank. I started like drinking on weekdays after my divorce. My husband and I didn't drink on weekdays. And it started like this romantic, I'm just listening to music, having a glass, cooking. And I do remember, so now you drank 2 bottles and cut to a year later, maybe 1.5. Oh, you shared 3 bottles with yourself when these days happened. I was so ashamed and it was so awful being a mom and a woman, and I really kept it to me. But I didn't even consider being an alcoholic because I earned a lot of money. I had a lot of respect, and I always got up. My home was super nice and sweet, with design furniture, blah, blah. All that appearance and facade was super okay.
When did you first notice that alcohol was problematic for you, let's say in your marriage or even after?
I remember my ex-husband quite often said, like, you get so drunk, it's embarrassing. And I was like, yeah, but I'm rock and roll, and, try to like, it's not that bad. And you get drunk as well. But anytime he said it, I knew something, he was right. This is not normal. But I really, really tried to not acknowledge it. And as long as I didn't drink in the morning, as long as I could go to work, as long as I didn't drink vodka, as long as I wasn't on the bench, I wasn't an alcoholic. So I don't think I realized it until I went to AA after 2 meetings. I was like, oh my God, I'm a full-blown alcoholic. I really didn't know. I was like, my first meeting when people said, hi, my name is, I'm an alcoholic. I was like, hi, my name is, I'm like a heavy drinker and sometimes maybe a bit of like abusing alcohol, but only in crisis like Corona or when my dad died or when I got a divorce. And there was like all these Andes. And then they turned it to a newcomer meeting and they started sharing. And once they talked about feelings, thoughts, the whole, I was like, oh, is that alcohol? Oh, okay. And then, yeah, like I said, 2-3 meetings in, I was like laying down flat. And I was so relieved because then it all made sense. Everything. It was like for the first time in 48 years, I felt I belonged, and I was like, I know a lot of famous people. How is it I belong with a bunch of alcoholics? This is weird. So that means I must be one of them. This is like my tribe. But I was so happy. I smiled for the first time in 10 years when I biked home from that meeting. And also very, very quickly I felt, I don't know what it is, but they have something. I need to have this because this is what I've been looking for in yoga, in meditation, in self-help books, in shrinks.
Sabine, you were looking for all of the things that AA ultimately gave you in other things in life, but at the bottom of everything still was your alcohol use before you got there.
But I never connected the dots.
But that's what I mean. Was there ever a point in the time leading up to when you came into AA that you thought, you know, I've got a problem here, even though you didn't know what to do about it, or maybe even though you brushed it off? How often did that thought come to you?
It got really present too. I got down, I don't know how to say it in English, but I had stress and depression and angst. So I was like getting really sick, and I had my workplace. Obviously, I thought also they were so unstructured in the infrastructure. And they helped me a lot, which, you know, I was on sick leave for 3 months. And I was like, I'm just going back and I just need to like sleep. And, you know, the stress was blah, blah, blah. And I went back to the workplace. I was at a brand as a creative director. And 5 hours at that day, I went down again. My body I couldn't work. And then it got to a long-term sick leave. And in that period, I started drinking a bit more. And I started to acknowledge I can't go back to that business because I can't take care of myself. I work too much. And now I see my ego, you know, I've been driven by that.
Was it suggested to you at all, though, during that time that maybe you were drinking too much? Did any of the people who were trying to help you ever say, well, let's take a look at your alcohol consumption, see if that's contributing? They never did that?
Never. And I mean, yeah, but it is, I think so too, but I've been very good at hiding it, I think, because my boss, a year later, I did like a mini 9-step on him, and he was like, are you an alcoholic? And I had that reaction from a lot of people. So I've been very introvert in my pain and I could wake up after sharing 3 or 4 bottles of wine with myself, get up 5 o'clock in the morning. I was a Pilates director as well, instructor. So I would go teach classes in Pilates, being so hangover, and then go to work like a creative director, being, hi guys, good morning, being this like, I've been working so much on an overdrive, I think. So obviously, I think my higher power has had a lot of red flags in my face in the last 20 years, and I just rubbed it in my face like it was rouge. So he needed to like, okay, you don't get it. Now I need to smack you down. And thank God.
We'll be right back. My friends, if you're enjoying my AA Recovery Interviews podcast, check out my latest audiobook, Alcoholics Anonymous, the story of how more than 100 men have recovered from alcoholism. This is the word-for-word, cover-to-cover reading of the first printing of the first edition of the Big Book, published in 1939. It's a relaxing and meaningful way to listen to the Big Book anytime, any place. Have a free listen at Audible, Amazon, or iTunes. While you're there, enhance your program with another audiobook I produced, Lost Stories of the Big Book, 30 original stories missing from the 3rd and 4th editions of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's an engaging audiobook that brings these stories to life for AA members who've never seen them. These timeless testimonials were originally cut to make room for newer stories in the 3rd and 4th editions. But their vitally important messages of hope are as meaningful today as when they were first published. Many listeners will hear these stories for the very first time. Listen to a free sample of Lost Stories of the Big Book on Audible, Amazon, or iTunes. It's also available as a Kindle book or in paperback from Amazon if you'd like to read along. You're gonna love it. And we're back. You mentioned that your husband and you would drink on weekends and infrequently. What was happening with the raising of your daughter during all those years that you were drinking?
Thank God we always had a transparent and very close relationship. And when I went to AA, obviously she was the one talking about NA. So she'd been there to meetings because she could find some recovery to her eating disorder.
Mm-hmm.
She used that. When I was like, I'm going to AA, and she was like with me on that journey. And I remember 1 month in, because I was like, in the beginning, I was like, oh, I'll just do 3 months of AA and then I'll get like a detox. And then I was like, no, I'll do 9 months, like a rebirth. So it's like a pregnancy. So I will do 9 months. And then like after 2 months, it just hit me. I was having coffee with my daughter and I was like, people are not playing, they are living this. This is for life. And then I was crying because then it was like, oh my God, this is not just like a detox or, it's for life. But in that was the biggest serenity. It was like, I'm so thankful because I hate when I only have things for 3 months. I just wanted, it was so easy for me. I know we say 1 day at a time, but it was so easy for me to be like, never drink again.
You were noticing all of this.
I think before that, maybe like 1.5 months.
And of course, that does happen. One of the things I think that makes it so difficult for us as functional drinkers, because I was a functional drinker too. I would drink a lot. I used to smoke a lot of marijuana in my time, and daily, every day. And I wasn't a blackout drinker, so I remember what I was doing. And a lot of the things I was doing were deplorable. But even so, I was still able to perform at a level at work and in my personal life that you could easily have labeled me a functional alcoholic. And we used to joke, my friends and I used to joke, saying, yeah, maybe we're alcoholic, but so what? It's not stopping us from getting what we want in life. And that's the grand illusion of being an alcoholic who's functioning well at work. Those people who go to work and their lives fall apart when they're drinking the way we drink, those people are actually the lucky ones. They get to experience whatever it is that takes them to the solution quicker.
Yeah.
But being a functional alcoholic must have been very, very difficult for you because you wanted to continue to do your job, but you also had the alcohol getting in the way. I'm just surprised nobody ever came to you and said something about it.
Yeah, me too. But I think in the business I was in, also hanging out with a lot of actors and musicians and a creative class and a lot of friends I actually had. I don't have today after I got sober. And we're not like, they just slipped away. And I remember we had a narrative like, obviously to justify our drinking because we drank a lot, but we had the expensive wines and the expensive food and stuff like that. And we were like kidding always like, oh, people who don't drink are boring. And maybe we drink a bit too much, but we're so interesting and we're so, blah, blah, blah. So we justified.
Mm-hmm.
And when you asked about my daughter, because she was like, but Mom, I don't see you as an alcoholic. And maybe it's the perception of it still. Because I was like, no, you didn't wake up to a mom naked with vodka bottles and men in the living room. But the disease in me and me not being able to be super present and stuff like that, all these things, being like super pleaser, approval searching, all these things, all of a sudden I started to understand my being in the world.
Yeah.
And then I think when you don't link alcohol to the type of person you are or the type of life you have, a few people have said, oh my God, you get really drunk sometimes. But no one has ever approached me saying, maybe you're an alcoholic, because it didn't fit the society's framing of an alcoholic. I think it's changing now, though. I think a lot more people owning it, even though A is like anonymous. They say they have a program and blah, 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 talk about it. And I wanted to own it as well, my sobriety, and say, you don't have to be like the one on the bench or under the bridge to have this disease.
That's been a common theme throughout all of the interviews I've done, and thank God it is, because it adds a certain degree of realness to the disease and the need for a program. In fact, earlier when you were saying about you took 3 months off, the very first thing that popped into my mind is what would pop into anybody in Alcoholics Anonymous's mind, and that is, 3 months, she must have gone to rehab. But you just took the time off to try and do it yourself?
No, the 3 month wasn't even, it was the stress from work. It wasn't linked to alcohol.
Okay, so it was about stress, not about alcohol.
No, not at all. And I continued drinking like 1-2 bottles a day, like I did for many years.
Must have been nice to have something to blame your alcoholism on.
Yeah.
So actually, while you were drinking, if you had just relabeled clinical depression or whatever it is that the stress, because I know I grew up with clinical depression and I've had it my whole life. It's a nasty, nasty disease. It can be managed. It can't be treated very well. And then you pour another depressant on top of it in the form of alcohol and drugs. But if there had been a time at which you chose to acknowledge the fact that you were drinking too much and that's why you were having the depressive or stressful or anxiety-ridden life, at what point would that have happened? At what point could you have said, I'm an alcoholic, and the problems with everything else are directly because of that?
I couldn't. Not until I went to AA, because I've been like Kurt Cobain, kind of sad all my life. I had this melancholy in my life, so I had a narrative that I'm just not really happy. I'm a struggling artist, kind of, creative soul, blah, blah, blah. And the last year before I went to AA, I really thought it was my medicine. It would help on my depression and my moodlessness. I didn't want to be in the world anymore. I didn't want to take my life because I had my daughter and I didn't have the guts. But for the last year or two, every night when I went to sleep, I was thinking, it's okay if I don't wake up. I don't want to be here anymore. Yeah. I was so sad and lonely. I almost get touched now. I was so empty. And I've been empty all my life, but I've been filling it up with, like fame and jobs and everything you hear also in the meetings. I've been filling up with outer things, and I had a perfect outer life. I didn't have an inner life, and I didn't know I lacked spirituality. I thought sitting on a yoga mat, I was spiritual. Yeah. I didn't even know what it was, I think.
So something was really missing in your life.
Super missing.
Yeah, that God-shaped hole that people talk about, didn't you?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's why the first day I went to AA, I felt I belonged. I smiled for the first time maybe in 10 years. I knew here is some kind of solution I've been searching for to make me happy. I don't know what it is, but I'm going to do anything they say. And I did from day one.
So you got to AA at just the right time and just the right day.
I think so.
After having so many years of success and a social life that most people would envy, and yet when it came to acknowledging that you were an alcoholic, there were all kinds of reasons not to. And so you could continue that lifestyle. When you were raising your daughter, you mentioned that you acknowledged to her that you weren't super present. What did that look like when she was just a small child and maybe into her teenage years? Were you there for her, or how did she get raised?
I believe I was. She says I was. I think I overcompensated always. I was like, if I was broke or sad or, whatever, drinking too much, no one else should suffer. So I was like overcompensating always, being like trying to be present. I can see now, with also maybe some ADHD, I can see now that, for example, I was working a lot, workaholic as well. So my daughter was the kid being picked up in a cab most to be driven to my workplace. We had a big advertising agency, so she could be in the playroom, but we ate dinner there. So she grew up with me bringing her to work. And she tells me today, she's 27, and says that she felt safe and good. And of course, after 9-stepping her, she tells me there is something she can see that, I didn't maybe acknowledge her feelings. I always tried to fix her. Maybe sometimes she just needed me to listen and stuff like that. We've been talking a lot about. But she didn't feel she had an alcoholic mom, and that taps into your. Didn't anyone like tell you or notice? So maybe I was very good at hiding it and just carrying my death inside.
I get that.
Maybe she comes to me in 10 years and tells me some stuff. But I really asked her a lot of times, is there anything, and she's like, no, I'm good. But then again, she has an eating disorder and she has a super behavior. She needs control and stuff. I can see disease-wise, she also has some issues. So
the apple doesn't fall very far from the tree with this disease.
No.
And I want to thank you for opening up to me about that. I know it's sometimes a really painful thing to talk about. The missed opportunities with children and families, in addition to everything else that gets compromised when you're an alcoholic. So 2 years ago, and you've mentioned it a number of times, you found AA and it changed your life. You came into the program. What was it like for you to find a sponsor, and how quickly did you do that?
I remember the first day, old timer came to me and said, because I didn't know if I was an alcoholic, and he was like, do 90 meetings in 90 days. And as I was in sick leave, I was like, sure, why not? I have all the time in the world. So I did. And I started listening to podcasts, also walking.
Now, these were live meetings you're talking about?
Yeah, live. I never did Zoom until I moved where I am now.
Okay.
So I went to a lot of live meetings. We have a lot in Copenhagen. And I quickly was told by the people I talked to, like, find a sponsor, do the steps. And I was like, yeah, I need a sponsor, and higher power, I need one as well. And mine is going to be a woman, and her name is Godrin. So I really tried to conceptualize, what book should I buy? Oh, you need to buy the big book and the 12 and 12. And I ordered online, and I got it in another language because I was so hasty.
Oh, no.
So I was so all in, eager to get this. But then I did find a woman. She has 20 years. And she was having something I needed. She had this, I could see she had the spirituality, and she's a dentist, but she was so cool and also so calm. Mm-hmm. And I was like, how can that be like an alcoholic? So I asked her, and she was like, she didn't want any bullshit. And she was like, if you want what I have, you need to do what I did. And I never questioned anything. If she said jump, I said how high. And a lot of the things she proposed, like pray in the morning, do stuff, the gratitude list and stuff like that, I still do. I never questioned it, but I didn't believe in it in the beginning. And I remember praying to my Godrin. But the beautiful part, I think, of this program is the authenticity, because like a month or two in, praying morning and evening, I was like, okay, it begins to feel fake saying Godrin. And I remember I was just leaning into, it feels better saying God. And so it grew on me, and it still does. And I love it today. I mean, it's a he and not a she, because I felt, as I don't have a husband, I don't have a boyfriend, I don't have a father, I needed that masculine energy to take care of me. And I felt safe all of a sudden. So now it is like a God, as I understand him.
I get that. And I think it's beautiful the way you talked about that masculine energy, too. The very first day they read how it works, you know that AA is going to be talking about God. How did you feel about all that? And how did that either jive with or conflict with your own spiritual beliefs before getting to AA?
I mean, I was all in. I remember some Sunday school when I was a kid. Uh-huh. In a church, but it was more, I think, for the cookies and stuff. But I didn't have any resistance at all. I so wanted to do this because I so wanted it, whatever it was they had. And if it was to believe in a higher power, then I would do it. But I found it hard to believe in an old man with a white beard. So I knew that's probably not it. But still I felt safe thinking about it as our Father.
Yeah.
It's funny because in the morning I'm doing a Chuck Norris out of my bed because I really want coffee and I want a cigarette. Mm-hmm. So I need to pray before, because otherwise maybe I forget it. So I really, before I go to the toilet, I really roll down and do my morning prayer. It's very short, but my evening prayer is long, and I do the third step prayer every evening, and it's growing on me, and like blessing people and asking for my daughter to have a good health and stuff like that. For me now, praying, I think it's like a prayer life can grow on you.
I think once it's demonstrated, the way the 12th step is where it is, and what it says is having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps. For me, it was exactly that. I didn't have the full awakening until I had done the steps. And the reason I think it's so brilliant the way Bill Wilson and the others put that concept together is that you got to do the work first, and then you can look back and see where God was working all along.
Yeah.
And if he was working all along as I was trying to get sober, maybe there's a chance he was working all along when I went through what I went through before I got sober, and he was there even in the childhood that was so miserable.
I see so clearly now.
It is quite an astonishing thing to reconcile. So you became okay with the God part of the program. You had the sponsor. How long did it take for you to actually work through all 12 steps?
It's been quite a long time, because I had a lot of 9 steps, which the persons, I couldn't find them. So it took quite a long time. And my sponsor gave me the 10th step in the beginning to do the daily, to just do that. I had some suggestions and the 10th step from the beginning. And I finished like maybe 3 months ago.
That's great.
With the last 9 steps, and the 11th and 12th, I am sponsoring people. And so I started softly doing it, but now I'm doing it again with an American woman from one of the Zoom meetings.
Oh, how wonderful.
Yeah.
What's that experience been like for you?
I'm on the 4th step with her, and it's different. And I love it. It's from one of the groups you recommended.
Most of the time over the years that I've had sponsees flame out is around the 4th step. What was doing your 4th step and 5th step like for you? What challenges did you face, and how did you overcome them?
I think I talked to both my sponsor and my step sponsor. I call him my step sponsor now, the new one. I was so immature in understanding also my feelings, and also in the 5th and 6th, I was like, yeah, let's move on. I'm arrogant, but then let's do the opposite. Today I have another awareness. I'm actually having a meeting with her tomorrow, and it's another experience. So I understand it better now. I'm so grateful to try it again, like 2 years in.
Another 4th step?
Yeah, it's another experience, and I think I did it just to do it.
More is revealed over time, too, Sabine.
Yeah.
That's what I found. And I remember my sponsor telling me, if you wait until you are 100% sure about everything you've written down, you'll never do it, because 100% doesn't get it. 100% is perfection. We're about progress, not perfection. So whenever it was I did the 4th step, I got really hung up in a lot of the details and everything else, and my sponsor said, just do it, ask God for the guidance, and know that if you cannot get to everything right now, get to what you can, and we'll deal with the stuff you can't get to deal with until the time at which you're ready to deal with it. So, I hear what you're saying when you mentioned doing the 4th step, but feeling like you're going to need to do another one. There's a sense, I think, even when we're sitting down and writing out that first 4th step, that we might not get to everything. And to have a sponsor say, that's okay, just do what you can, and then we'll work the rest later. Was that kind of your experience too?
No, I think she needed me to be a bit more thorough.
Really?
And also, I was also told in the beginning a lot that I tried to intellectualize everything, and she needed to get me out of the head and down to the body.
That's hard.
Yeah, it is. It's a long journey from the head to the heart. And she was also very insisting on like doing all the 9 steps, and I was like, but there is so much I don't remember. What if I remember something in a year? And she just had another approach, because I see now that, like you say, more will be revealed.
Oh, yeah.
And I do have, as I also had a lot of blackouts, obviously, I do have a lot of and I can't ask my parents because they're dead. So I have a lot of missing links and you know, times I don't remember, periods in my childhood, and hopefully I hope I will remember more.
I think that is the case. I think that over time, as we get our brains out of hock, as they say, when we start to, remember things that we conveniently forgot because of how terrible our behavior was, that more is revealed, and you get the inkling, now I remember what I said or did at that time. So I've had people say that they didn't get through their ninth step, really considering it complete, until they were sober 10 or 20 years. Because sometimes it can take that long just to get to something that maybe you repressed. I mean, a lot of this is about mental illness too, for a lot of us. And so, to expect to be able to get to everything when you're dealing with the kind of things like depression and anxiety and stress that have a tendency to want to take you out of memory and take you into despair, I think it makes a lot of sense to do what you can and do it as well as you can, and then see what the results are. So as you look back on the ninth step amends that you've made so far, overall, how would you rate the way you feel about the process and the results of doing the ninth step?
I remember in the beginning, I was like, but I haven't can I say fuck?
Sure.
I haven't fucked anyone's husband. I haven't wrecked a car. What should I apologize for? What? And then I find it very hard to find something to apologize for. But then someone shared in a 9-step meeting that, what about all the things you didn't do? Like you didn't call that person, or you didn't go to that wedding because you wanted to drink, or you didn't. And all of a sudden I was like, oh my God. And I had 60 or 70 all of a sudden. I've been so arrogant and self-centered, and also had a lot of self-pity and justifying. I offer so much, so now I can do this, So I had a lot of 9 steps also on my sisters of being a prick. I mean, I was so arrogant, and I just ran away from home, and I thought my family were losers, so I didn't want to talk to them because now I had the high society life.
Yeah, you left at 15 when you were a kid, right?
Yeah. So for many years, I didn't talk to my sisters. I didn't want to, they were not cool enough.
So that would have been an amend you would have made, that, I gave up the opportunity to have said something or did something for you, and for that I was wrong, and what restitution can I make? That's the hallmark of a good 9th step.
I did that, and I said, I'm so sorry. I've been such a lousy, bad big sister. I didn't take care of you. I wasn't curious. I didn't help you, support you when our parents got divorced. Stuff like that was so nice to say. And I'm still repairing on it. One of the sisters, I lived with her for a few months last year, and we're quite close now.
Yeah.
And my ex-husband was difficult because it's 20 years ago since we got divorced, and I really struggled. What should I take responsibility? But actually, I took responsibility of bringing in such a mature me. My emotions were like a 4-year-old. I only knew 2 feelings, and I couldn't be, he was 9 years older than me, and I couldn't be an equal partner to him. So I took kind of responsibility for the way, the drama and stuff, even though he as well. I tried to look at my part and what I did bring to that relationship.
Yeah, you have to look at your part, because there's nothing you can do about their part. And sometimes our part is nothing more than the fact that we were just present to have happened to us what had happened, or for us to have done what we did. So, to me, that the best 9th step amends are the ones where we can really see our part. And sometimes it's not easy, but so you've been in now 2 years. It must have flown by for you.
It has and it hasn't.
In what ways?
When I was at sick leave and I was deciding, okay, I can't go back to that business. I'm a burnout in this business, like advertising, and I need to have another purpose. I need to do something else. I took a decision that I wanted to work with addicts.
Now, how far into your sobriety was this revelation for you?
It was 2 or 3 months. I knew because I've been fed up for long. in my old business, and I wasn't happy. And I found out that the disease and the psychology behind addict behavior, I really found that interesting. That's why I deep dived in podcasts, everything I could. And I've been doing that every day since. So I started changing my life.
3 months sober.
Yeah.
When you were telling your sponsor and others about wanting to make this major change, what kind of feedback were you getting?
I was getting, take one day at a time.
Yeah.
And, but it took me 2 years to do it, because in these 2 years, nothing has happened. Today at the meeting you also go to, we talked a lot about acceptance, and also of acceptance of things that are not. And I had half a year where I didn't have a job, and I didn't know where should I live. I didn't know anything. And my sponsor kept saying, you are just where you're supposed to be. And I was like, how can you say that? I don't, I just feel I'm stuck. I only go to meetings, and, I'm not earning any money. And I'm so grateful, because I started this job in March. So it's 4 months. So it took me, almost 2 years to get here. But I knew in my head, and my process was working towards this job, which I'm glad I didn't get 1 year ago, because I wouldn't be ready.
That's something that I think happens to an awful lot of people in the program once their lives are saved by the things that then they can become involved in, if not through AA, even professionally, becoming counselors and working at rehab centers and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you one other question. If you, Sabine, right now, with what you know about your disease and about alcoholism and about everything that you've experienced up to this point, if you could go back to the Sabine at an earlier time and talk to her about her future and what she should and shouldn't do to be prepared for a great life, let's say, the kind of life you have now, how old would she have been, and what would you have said to her?
Oh, my God, Howard. Big question.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's the child or the teenager, but I would definitely tell her that she belongs in this world, and she don't have to prove herself all the time. It's okay to be me. And with the knowledge today, I would say don't self-medicate with all these things. I wish I knew I lacked the spiritual part to heal what's empty, because no one told me it could be that. The spiritual melody, the belief in, I thought in success and materialism would be like, then you're happy. And no one ever taught me what should make me happy. So I thought it was all the outer values. So I would try to tell her that it doesn't make you happy. And but I don't think I would listen at that time because I was also rebellious. And I think my higher power, if he wanted me to come earlier, maybe he would. But I've been stubborn, I think.
Well, you didn't come a minute too soon or a minute too late, and that's a beautiful sentiment that you just expressed about what you would say to your earlier, younger self. And to me, I think it speaks of somebody who's got a great future ahead of them in sobriety, in the field that you're going into. And I just want to thank you for doing this. You're a beautiful person. I'm glad we got a chance to spend some time together here today.
Thank you, Howard. And I really want to thank you also for doing this work. And I'm so, so happy I met you.
Thank you. Well, my friends, that's a wrap for today's episode of AA Recovery Interviews. I want to thank my guest, Sabine H., for sharing her story. And thank you for tuning in. If you've enjoyed the interviews in this podcast series, please share it with others. This show is another helping hand of AA we can all extend to alcoholics everywhere. If you want to contact me directly with any comments, questions, or suggestions, simply email howard@aarecoveryinterviews.com. Please also take a minute to leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube Music, Amazon Music, or wherever you get your podcasts. By the way, this podcast strictly adheres to AA's 12 traditions and all General Service Office guidelines for safeguarding anonymity online. I pay all production costs, and no one receives financial gain from the podcast. AA Recovery interviews and my guests do not speak for or represent AA at large. This podcast is simply my way of giving back to AA that which has been so freely given to me. The next episode of AA Recovery Interviews is on the way, so keep coming back. It'll be here soon.